Good evening, everybody. It's Monday night, it's 8 o'clock, and I make that time for another nervous chat. Just a quick welcome to everybody in the live chat, and get the banner up. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. Right, let's have a quick run through some of the comments. Let's say good evening to everybody. Good evening, Lauren from the Thompson Life. Evening, Kaz's Crafts and More. Let's have a quick run through. Good evening, Air Oscars Airtime. One of my awesome mods for the live chat. Watch out, keep an eye on those comments, guys. As is the fantastic Nick from Walking with the Woods. Good evening, Nick. Just go a quick run. Evening, Esther. Good evening, Jameer, Park Visions. Thanks for joining. I know the time difference does make it difficult, so it's always really appreciated. Good evening, Single Rider. Lone Rider, Red Balloons 99, and welcome to another show. Good evening, Adam. It's great to have you back, mate. Hope you had a great first day in your new job, and that you go on to enjoy the job. Good evening, Abby from Airtime Abby. Lovely to see you in the chat. Just Rob. Good evening, Rob. Thanks for joining. Okay, I think that's everybody from the live chat. I will bring up your messages as and when in just a second. A couple of quick announcements. For those of you that didn't see it just now, the final version, I suppose, version's the right word, of Dale the Coaster Capturer's stag vlog, which is the view from James the Coaster Chicken. Went live just before the show tonight, so if you haven't watched that vlog, please go and check that out, and all of our vlogs from the day. I'm looking forward tomorrow to being able to watch all 6 vlogs back to back and reliving the day from everybody's different perspectives, because we all sort of captured different things in different ways and then edited them in very different styles. So really looking forward to doing that tomorrow and catching up with that. Also, while I'm here, coming up this week on my channel, some of you may remember, I've got a little video. The Coaster Tog trialed a little game show, I suppose, called Battle of the Rides, where there were 8 rides selected for us. We were given a ride each in each sort of section, and we had to argue in favor of the 2 rides, and then we put it to the live chat to decide who had been the most convincing, whose ride had won the Battle of the Rides, and we kept going until we had 1 ride left, and they were the overall winner. Due to the popularity of that, we've brought it back, this time as a standalone thing. So on Thursday night at 8 p.m, it is a standalone Battle of the Rides, which I've got a little VT for you here right now. So this will be Thursday, 8 p.m. Please join us. So that's this Thursday. The link for it is in the description for tonight's video. So please check that out. Come and support. Your votes are what decides the winner each time. And it won't be me arguing this time. I'm going to be hosting. I've got 2 previous guests of Nervous Chat, Ollie from Twisted Tracks and Max from Theme Parks All Over. So they're going to be going head to head on rides that they've both done. And of course, Mike from Journey to the Attractions will be my fantastic producer again, keeping all the graphics flowing and keeping it all running smoothly. Fingers crossed. So please, Thursday night, join us for that. And then a week on Saturday, we've got another Walking with the Woods quiz. This time it's Disney live action, so bear with me. So that's a week on Saturday, 20th of May, over on the Walking with the Woods channel. Again, the link for that show and for the Walking with the Woods YouTube channel is in the description for tonight's video down here. Not in my lap, obviously. Right, let's crack on with the show at hand. So as many of you know, I like to talk to very varied accounts from all sorts of backgrounds with all sorts of USPs, you know, and just to get an idea from everybody about, you know, their vlogging or their Instagramming and why they do it and how they do it and all these kind of things. And I'm always looking for new and interesting perspectives. Tonight's guest, I've been in contact with for some time, and I really admire what they do, and just admire them as a family. Being a family with children is difficult enough, but when you have a child with additional needs, whether that be on the autistic spectrum, ADHD, or any of those other things that mean, you know, that sometimes everyday things that you and I take for granted can be a struggle. You know, I just think that that's amazing. When you manage to vlog that as well, I think just takes that to a whole new level. So without further ado, let me bring in tonight's guest. That's Matthew from Adventures with Autism. Good evening,
Hello.
Matthew.
Hello, how are you
doing?
Not too bad.
Yeah, all good here, thanks. Thank you for joining me tonight. It's as I just said in the introduction there, you know, I've always admired the sort of where you come from with your vlogs and things, because as I said, you know, vlogging with children is difficult enough. Going to a theme park with children is difficult enough at times. When you add in extra factors like being on the autistic spectrum or ADHD or all those kind of things, I mean, that can only, you know, at times, I'm sure, take it to a whole nother level of difficulty. Can I ask, for, obviously, I suppose we start from the beginning, really. What made you want to start recording your days?
So it started, when did it start? It was just after COVID. I mean, so what we started doing, started going out on family days out, etc. And what we were finding is that, because I've got 3 kids, I've got 2 boys and a girl, so boy, girl, boy. My eldest is 10, daughter's 9, my youngest is 6 now. And what we were finding is that just going out every single time to different theme parks was expensive. Obviously having to pay. I mean, even when they were younger, we were still having to pay for them all to get in, and we wanted to be able to go out more and more, try and get them out. And as we were getting older, we wanted to just get them out more, really. So we ended up buying a Merlin annual pass. November 2019, we bought that, all premium passes, because we looked at it and said, well, we're spending £120 every time we go to a theme park. Get the Merlin annual pass, go as many times as you want. And when we got it when it was cheap, I mean, we were paying 47 quid a month for all 5 of us on the old premium. So that it was great value. And then even when COVID came along, obviously they paused it. And then when they brought out the new ones, we carried on. And we've only just, December just gone, we've just changed to platinum, mainly because they brought out the restrictions.
Yeah. Just on that point, like you, I took out my premium pass in 2019 for exactly the same reason as you, wanting to get out more. I've still got my premium now because, as you say, you know, thankfully the exclusion dates don't affect me. I don't do bank holidays at parks, so you know it's okay. I'm sure there'll come a time when they impose further restrictions that I might need to consider that change. But yes, and as you rightly say, the value for money that they represent is just unbelievable, isn't it? Certainly when you've got children, that ability to just be able to get up and go, you know, or the Friday night and go, do you know what, let's go Chessington tomorrow, or let's go Alton Towers tomorrow, and not have to worry about £120 just to get through the gate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is a godsend, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice being able to just go there and just worry about having to find a room and that's it.
Yeah.
And I think, So it started, obviously, we got that November 2019, and obviously lockdown came along. And then when did the parks reopen? Was it the July, something like that?
It was the July, wasn't it? Yeah. Yes, it was
Yeah.
July, because I remember I delayed going until I think it was end of July, August, because I was a little, like a lot of people, apprehensive about the pre-book system, which was just being booked up well in advance by anybody that could get onto the system, and also about whether we'd actually be staying in that level of freedom or whether we would be going back towards a lockdown. And but yes, it was definitely the July.
So yeah, it was around about that time that we started doing the channel. I think what we thought about doing was, because I've got my eldest he's autistic, and then my youngest is as well. We're getting to the point where we're querying if my daughter's got ADHD as well. She gets very emotional. But there's nothing official for her yet, but never know. It's not one of those ones we don't want to have a label for her. But it's, if you've got you never want to label your kids. You never want to say, right, he's autistic. But unfortunately, to get the support, you have to get that label. So things like your DLA, your carers pass, your ride access pass. To get that support to enable you to have those, you need to have the diagnosis. You need to have those bits in place, like your EHCPs at school. So what we found is, especially my eldest, he doesn't like photos, filming. He doesn't like being in it. But just when you just try and take a family photo of him, it can be a nightmare. He just goes, no, not going to do it. Leave it. So what we thought is, let's give them a purpose. Say, right, we're going to do YouTube, because they love YouTube. They're always on their iPads watching random YouTube videos and all this. So give them something they can focus on. To say, right, well, we're going to start doing a YouTube channel, and then it gives them something to film for. And it gives me an excuse to be filming them as well, as rather than just I'm filming for the sake of it. So that's always a good thing. I mean, I've got years and years of photos and videos that half the time we never look at. But if I've got something to do, something to share, rather than just being sat up on my wall, then that's what we started doing. And yeah, we love it.
It's as you say, it's memories, isn't it? And you know, and there's for obviously you and I were having a discussion just before we came on air, and we you know, and like you, there's the live memory on YouTube, the edited, you know, that is there for as a memory, and if other people want to watch it and enjoy it, that's great, you know, love that too. And then there's all the clips that got edited down into that video. I keep those too. And obviously that's what you were saying as well. That's exactly what you do. I download them onto an SD card, and I, you know, and I put the file that away, so that in the future, if the children say, you know, oh, that was a great day at Chessington, that was, but is that all there is to it? I can then pull that SD card out and go, well, actually, no, this is everything that I filmed that day. That was just the bits that I wanted to put on YouTube. You know, that were the highlights, if you like, of the day, or the funny parts, or you know, or those sort of bits as a quick memory hook almost. This is the full day, and take it out and show it, as you say, and I think that's a great way of doing it. So I think, you know, it's a great way to store those memories and have them forever. So obviously with the from the perspective of having the children with autism, I know that a lot of your videos contain sort of useful tips to sort of try and help other people navigate what can be, you know, a very testing time, I'm sure, when you're going into that kind of environment where there are probably hundreds and hundreds of potential triggers all around. Was that a deliberate shift, or did you just think, oh, somebody might find this useful, I'll put that in the video?
When we first started, it was always going to be, that's why it's called Adventures with Autism. It was always going to be based around life with our autistic family. Now, the first few videos were just me learning, you know, They were just literally me filming the kids. That's it. This is what we're doing. And then it was just as a sort of constructive criticism from other users, just saying, what sort of things would you like to see? How would you find these videos helpful? And things were like, the comments were like, can you show me how you do this? What do you find useful? How does it help? And that's what sort of triggered us going into those sort of tips and tricks sort of videos, as well as the family vlogs. I always try and do it from that perspective. I didn't want to just start doing another theme park vlog because other people do that. I mean, yourself, your videos are great. There are other people that do that far better than I ever could. So I thought, right, let's do this. With every YouTube channel, you need a USP. I mean, I know you started yourself because you didn't like doing roller coasters.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you just started doing, right, I'm going to conquer this fear. That was your USP. Well, it is your USP. And then we thought we'll do it that way. Try and make ourselves maybe not stand out so much, just be unique. Try and help people as much as we can. So that's what I try and do. Try and film it from that perspective. So the other side of it is that I could never film a roller coaster video as just a theme park thing. I can't. You've got those kids. You can't go and plan those videos. Like I watch the other YouTubers and they'll go and do all these days out and these challenges on. I mean, you've done it yourself with challenges on roller coasters and things like that, and it's just something you just can't do.
Yes,
you just needed a unique selling point, and it's worked out well.
I think your particular unique selling point, though, is also one that touches the heart of a lot of people. And I think I still don't think we've reached anywhere near the level of understanding of things like being on the autistic spectrum and and ADHD and all those additional needs, things that are out there. But we're in a better place than we've ever been. And I think there's certainly a lot more empathy. I don't want to say sympathy because that's patronizing. Empathy, I think, is the right word. But seeing your wholesome family vlogs, how you've navigated situations as they've arisen, and as the tricks and things that you've learned along the way, and sharing those is yes, it's a USP, but it's also a very wholesome sort of point to come from. It's this is my family, and I'm proud of them, and that's amazing as well. The pride that comes over, proud dad, and of course every dad should be proud of their children, but you should also be very proud of yourself because, as I say, I know that from experience. I mean, I don't know if you know my career background, but I work with children, and I've been trained to assist and support children with special educational needs. So seeing a lot of the things that have happened and that you talk about in your videos, I can totally empathize with and understand from that perspective, and and as I say, for me, it's like, this is fantastic that you're not just sitting there telling us these things, you're showing us these things in action, and how they work, but also how these triggers impact your family, which is a very, very personal thing that you're sharing with us, and I'm sure there are hundreds of families out there in similar situations who really appreciate you doing that, because it gives them, I'd like to hope, the confidence to be able to go to theme parks, because I know of families with children on the spectrum who avoid those kind of attractions because they just know around every corner is a potential trigger, and so, but their children are missing out, and hopefully through people like yourself and the videos and the tips and things that you're sharing, it empowers them to go, actually, Matt and his kids did it, so I'm going to give it a go. And I think that comes across very much in your videos. So I can only commend you for that, because, as I say, I love watching the videos for that wholesome family thing. They you know, they feel like you've got those kind of vlogs, haven't you, where, you know, like mine, they're quite edited, and you could tell they're quite edited. They've got, you know, some fancy bits in them and whatever else, and then you've got those wholesome real vlogs of true days out of with a you know, and as I said, that is beautiful, and I always admire those kind of vlogs. So as I say, I commend you absolutely for that, and for being so open and honest with people about, you know, the difficulties that you've faced and what's happened, and that things don't always work out for the best, that things do go wrong.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, as well as one of the reasons why we got a Merlin pass as well. There have been times before we got it, I think, because what we used to do with our anniversaries in August time, we always used to do a trip, and we did it 2 or 3 years in a row. We went over to Chester Zoo. And it was great. I mean, the kids loved it, but the problem you start getting is when you do days out and you're paying for one day out, is that it can take one thing for Robert or James just to be, right, that's it, I'm done for the day, I want to go home, that sort of thing. Or if it's not, they might have a couple of hours of a meltdown where we can't go do things. We just have to literally go sit in the corner and calm down. And what we found is if you're paying for a day out, you're saying to the kids, hang on, I've paid for this. I can't come back. I'm not going early. So I'm staying. And in some ways, it makes it worse. You don't enjoy the day as much. You're staying because you paid for it. So when we got the Merlin pass, because it's like, I can go for the day. If we have to go home early, we'll go. We've got the Merlin pass. I can just come back. I'm not wasting my money on that particular day. I can just come back. And it's really helped us. I mean, like, we did... When did we go? What day are we on now? Christ, I've lost time.
It's the bank holidays. They've messed everybody up.
Last bank holiday, 1st of May, we went down to Alton Towers.
Yeah.
But we actually went a couple of weeks before that as well. The first day of the Smiler takeover.
Oh, yeah.
It was just after Easter holidays, wasn't it? It started the day after Easter holidays.
It did, yes, anyway.
Yes. And my eldest, because my eldest is at a separate school now, he's at a special school. He didn't have a training day, but my other two did.
Right.
And we spoke to him, and he was happy. And we ended up saying, right, well, my mum took him to school and picked him up, and we just took the other two down to Alton Towers for the day. I booked it off work, and we just did it with just two of them. Knowing that, like I say, we can say that to Robert, we're going to Alton Towers for the day, but don't worry, we'll take you on another day. We're not having to pay extra, and that's what we did. We went back on the 1st of May.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why we switched to Platinum, is because with my job, I have bank holidays off.
Yeah.
So I need the bank holidays to be there, because then I'm not having to book extra days off work.
Yeah. That makes absolutely sense, you know, and I've long been an advocate of, you know, I hear people arguing in favor of this pass and that pass, and I say to everybody, everybody's individual, everybody's different. There's these days there's a pass that suits pretty much everybody. You know, go in and think about what you need from the pass, and get the pass that is relevant to that. You know, because I could sit here and say, oh yeah, gold passes are amazing because they're not as expensive and but like you say, for yourself who goes on bank holidays because you don't work bank holidays, well, that would be useless because they're all excluded dates apart from today, because it was an additional bank holiday. All the others are excluded dates, so it, you know, that would be no use to yourself. So absolutely. As Disney M has just put in the live chat here, if you need total flexibility, then Platinum is the obvious answer, isn't it? You know, as I say, for me,
the other side of that is that my youngest birthday is on the 23rd of October.
Right.
So we always go down for the Halloween events.
Of course.
And
Fright Nights
as well. Yeah.
Fright Nights. There's a week, isn't there, of Fright Nights that's excluded. So, which last year, I have to say, I did attend during that week. However, this year it just so happens I'm not planning on attending the week that's excluded. I'm actually going to try and get to Fright Nights right at the start, because
but they didn't have the exclusions last year, did they, for premium?
Not for premium. No, premium last year basically was the same as platinum, wasn't it? And
yeah,
then
well,
it's only
that's
this
what
year
we
that
had right up until December. We literally got it like Christmas Eve or something, because I kept you know, they had a load of those vouchers that came out and said 0 joining fee.
Yes, yeah,
loads of them, and I picked up quite a few, to be fair, and sort of kept hold of them. And I gave loads of them. I actually gave loads of them out on like the Merlin Facebook page. So I've got loads of these. Do you want them? Do you want them? And I made sure I kept one for myself. And I waited as long as possible. And I think I got them just before Christmas. We did Lightopia at Alton Towers.
Yeah.
And then took them out.
Yeah. That's fair enough. And, you know, and as you say, you know, and as I say, as Disney M says there, you know, it's horses for courses, and it's what suits everybody, you know. And so obviously with visiting all the parks as you have done, and I'm guessing you've pretty much covered all of the ones. Which would you say had been the best park for visiting for you, for regularly being able to go there, and the park being accommodating and not having, because I get every day is different when you have children with autism, and you know what's a trigger one day isn't always a trigger the next day, and everything else. But is there a particular park that stands out as being better for any particular reason?
It's a difficult question to ask about going regularly, mainly because of distance. I'm up in Yorkshire.
Right, okay, of course.
Visiting Chessington, Thorpe Park, Legoland is not something I can just do. Alton Towers we can pop to. I can do that in a day, 2.5 hour drive. So Alton Towers is the one we go to regularly. It's the one the kids know best. I would say the one that the kids enjoy most, I'm looking over my wife now. Do you reckon Chessington? I would say Chessington. I think it's certainly for Robert as well.
Legoland have more for them if we have meltdowns.
Yeah. I would say Legoland's probably the best for a calming environment.
Yes. I've heard a few people say that.
It's got more. So Legoland's got the full sensory room. We've used that once or twice. The changing room there at Legoland is really good. Behind... where is it? It's in between Pizza Pasta and the ice cream shop.
I know where you mean. Yes,
it's down in there, and it's where the first aid room is as well. I think I put it in one of my videos. But
it's
that room
just
there
opposite,
is really good.
It's just opposite the lake, isn't it, where they do the pirate show and that?
Yeah, just around there.
Yeah, I know where you mean.
It's not designed for additional needs, but just of how it's laid out. My youngest, he's 6 now, but he's still in pull-ups. We've got that one issue going on there. So we can't just go and use any changing room because he's too big for the fold-down ones now.
Of course he is, yeah.
And Alton Towers have certainly improved a lot now. They've put in those big accessible changing rooms. You've got one down by Smiler. There's the new one up right at the entrance. They're really good because you've got the fold-down tables that they're all electric and like fully accessible toilets. And they're great for him because they can go low and he can get on himself and he feels like he's not being a baby. It's a proper changing table.
Yeah. And that's important.
High enough for me. Because there's been loads of times where we've gone into a changing room or even a disabled toilet and we just change him on the floor.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. But yeah, that changing room in Legoland is great. Because, I mean, you've got, I think there's feeding rooms. If you're breastfeeding, you've got them. But the changing tables, rather than being a fold-down one, they're literally just like a worktop with the table. I'm losing my words. They've got like that changing thing that's bolted to it. Because it's solid.
Yeah.
Live shows, honestly. Yeah, they've got those that's great. And then it's big enough in there that whilst one of us is off changing James, there's plenty of room in there for the other two to be.
Yes.
And they're not running off and around the park, and it's quiet in there as well. It's just like an enclosed area.
Yeah.
And then you've got the sensory room. And I think Legoland itself is it's smaller. It's one of the smaller parks, I would say.
I think by square foot, it's the smallest, isn't it?
I think so. It's really difficult to judge when you're walking around everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
And that hill's quite deceiving.
Mm.
And you've got to go up and down that hill. It kills you a bit more.
Oh yes. I'll never forget the day we went to Legoland, and my wife had done something to her leg, and we had to hire a wheelchair, and I had to wheel her up and down that hill, and oh my word, it was horrific.
Well, we always try and take, for most parts, certainly for Alton Towers, we've got like a special needs push chair, a smaller wheelchair that we take.
Yeah.
Especially for the younger one, because he can sit in there and we can give him our phone or his iPad or something. It's his safe space.
Yeah.
And it gives us somewhere to hang bags and keep snacks in, so it's really useful. So we're always pushing something around. So
yeah,
we do tend to find at Legoland we don't take that as much because it is smaller. And that hill, absolute killer.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we always try and look, if the hill train's running, we'll take the chair.
Yes.
If it's not, then we'll just leave it at the top. But we went off on a tangent there. Favorite part? I think the kids enjoy Chessington overall.
Yep.
And I'll say at the moment, primarily because none of them are 1.4 yet.
Yes.
Chessington, you've only got Rattlesnake that's 1.4.
Yes,
they can go on everything
right.
else.
Yeah.
So
I think that is the attraction, isn't it, of Chessington? Is that there's some rides there that are just they're not quite big coasters, but they're big enough to make those that are just starting to venture onto sort of braver rides feel like they're doing something a bit more thrilling, with Vampire, and of course with the upcoming Mandrill Mayhem will be Merlin's only 1.2 inverted roller coaster with an inversion, which is going to be a massive bonus and a massive plus for Chessington, which already has that great appeal, I think, for having something for everybody, if you like. I'm assuming because of obviously the autism, and as you said, you have the two boys have both got statements.
Yeah.
That you use the ride access pass wrap.
Yeah, we couldn't do days out without the ride access. They've both got their own ride access. I've even got one here for the mother-in-law as well. We ended up getting, because my mother-in-law's got MS in a wheelchair, so she can't go on all the rides. She can go on barely any of them, but again, you might as well have it if she can get it and gives us the option. But yeah, I mean, I've got this, still got the old ones. Both got the yellow.
Yep.
Ride access. Yeah, we couldn't do parts without ride access. Definitely, and it's nice that I've only got one thing for all 4 parks and the extra bits as well.
Yes, yes.
But even then, I think that's what I started doing a lot of my videos on, was how to get the most out of using ride access. Because there's not that many videos out there. I mean, there's videos out there that show how the ride access works and what it does.
Yeah.
But you still need to plan your day just like you would normal queuing.
Yeah. It might interest you to know, obviously, I put a little poll in the live chat because I was intrigued myself, because we talk about wrap quite a lot. And for those of us who have wrap, obviously, it's we all know what it is and how it works, or at least that's the assumption. So I put a little poll in asking people if they knew how wrap works, and actually was quite surprised that out of the 13 people that voted, 46% said no. They didn't understand how wrap works, which I think contributes a little bit towards the negative feelings that are sometimes vented about wrap. I think I've long thought that a lack of understanding with regards to wrap is part of the issue, with people thinking that you know, it's a queue skipping system. You never have to queue. You just skip queues. Obviously, anybody that understands rap will know that's not true. It is. I suppose because I've had that response, I think, you know, between us we can probably explain it the best, can't we?
Yeah.
So the rap system is basically a virtual queuing system for people who cannot physically queue or find physical queuing difficult. So whether that be because of a physical impairment or an additional need that means that being in a queue for a long period of time is just, you know, almost essentially impossible. So in order to allow those people to be able to ride, they are issued with a ride access pass, which is valid for 3 years. I think is
Current ones
still
are
the
3
right.
years. Yeah, the old ones,
Yeah,
these yellow ones are 2 years.
right.
So these are
That's
the
it.
old style ones. So
Yeah.
I know which one this. So this is my youngest. His runs out September.
Yeah.
But then you've got the blue ones. They're 3 years. So they're the new style ones.
Yeah. And basically you collect a card when you go to the park, if you're going to Thorpe Park or Alton Towers, or you log into a system if you go to Legoland or Chessington, and you go and do a ride, and you enter through either the ride access pass entrance, which is a much shorter walk onto the ride, and then you join a much shorter queue specifically for people who have RAP. What then happens is you are timed out, in theory, for the length of time of the main queue line. So you cannot use that RAP again until that timeout has run out. So if, for example, you go to Vampire and the main queue is at 30 minutes, you do your Vampire ride, you cannot use that RAP again for 30 minutes. So it isn't the queue skipping system, as is sadly thought. It is a virtual queuing system. So for those people who cannot stand in queues, what they can do is they can spend their queuing time sat on a bench in a timeout area, or, you know, or something like that. I think, I don't know if there's any more that you can add to that. I think that's my wife is a RAP holder, so
yeah,
that's why I can speak with a degree of confidence. I say a degree
so that,
because
yeah,
I'm not for any of us.
That's on paper how it works. I think what some people don't understand as well is that often the ride access queues have long queues as well. I mean, some of the worst rides. I mean, Vampire often has long ride access queues. Spinball Whizzer sometimes has quite long queues as well. I mean, obviously, they're never lengthwise and size-wise. They're never as long as the main queue. Time-wise, they sometimes are.
Yeah.
The reason for the time-wise is because there'll only be 1 or 2 ride access users allowed on per train, per thing. So it moves slower than the main line. And another flip side of it as well is sometimes my boys can handle queuing for a bit longer, or I might be queuing and they're running around or going off, maybe not away from the queue, but they're around the queue. And you'll find the ride access queues are more accessible as well.
Yes.
Depending on the ride, some of them are wheelchair accessible, some of them aren't. So it does depend on the ride. So like Vampire isn't wheelchair accessible, but I don't think you can't be in that if you're in a wheelchair. I don't believe. I can't remember off the certain ones. I don't know off the top of my head the wheelchair accessible restrictions, because I've never needed to use them. Because of both my boys are all able. But I know for a fact that Vampire is not wheelchair accessible either. Queue, you've got to go down steps.
Yes.
But the distance from the front of that queue to the back of the queue is reasonably short. You're not winding around, and you've got that option. Most of it's actually outside, just in like a little area. There's no like fences or anything. So does it mean the boys have the freedom to go sit over there whilst I'm stood in the queue? or if they've decided they need the toilet, they can go to the toilet and then come back. But you'll also find, because that queue is for ride access holders, people in those queues are generally more forgiving, empathetic, sympathetic to your situation. So when you've got boys kicking off or arguing, things like that in the queue, people aren't moaning as much. I mean, you'll always get people that moan and tut and roll their eyes. I, for one, don't care. My wife is a little bit more self-conscious in that respect. She gets a little bit more embarrassed. I don't care. I mean, I used to be a teacher back in the day. I've got used to being around kids. They do what they do. But you'll find the people in those queues are just more forgiving.
Yes, like your good lady there. My wife, who is the wrap holder, often feels quite self-conscious when she's queuing in a wrap, and in the wrap queue. And as you say, there are the people tutting at the queue jumpers, hearing the comments of, as sadly, I'm sure you've probably experienced, they don't look disabled.
That's an odd comment. Is I never hear that. I don't know whether it's. I mean, I'm 6 foot. I mean, like, I'm 6 foot, fairly well built, and I personally never hear it. So I don't know whether it's that they don't say it, or my wife hears it all the time.
Yeah,
all the time. My wife hears it, or like, so both my boys have got blue badges, so we're parking in the disabled bay, and then they get out and run off. Or not run off, but they'll get out and walk off, and like, you'll get that they don't look disabled and that sort of thing. Again, I never get those comments. It's really weird. I don't know whether I look intimidating or not.
Maybe it is. I mean, because quite often you find, because to me that that's bullying. You can dress it up however what you want to, but it essentially is a bullying, and it's discriminatory. And I think bullies are cowards generally, and will target people they feel can't stand up for themselves. And my wife here has just obviously commented about she hates the looks that she gets, and I think your good lady is commenting as well, saying that the looks are horrible, makes you feel very self-conscious. Disney M was about just saying about the you don't look disabled, but didn't realize that everyone else was so qualified in the field. I think at one point, on a particularly bad day, I heard one of those comments, and I retorted with, "Do you know what? You're right. My wife's disability isn't visible, and neither was your stupidity. I only realized how stupid you were once you opened your mouth." And they very quickly shut up and sort of and went away, which was, but that's not always going to be the case, and I shouldn't have to respond in that way. Overall, do you think RAP works, or do you think as a system now it's a bit outdated? Obviously, Chessington, as you identify as one of your favorite parks, have been in quite a controversial situation recently, and from experience of, as you say, Alton Towers is the park that you visit most often. I live down here in the south, so I visit the southern parks most often: Legoland, Chessington, and Thorpe Park. And I would say that overall, my experience personally of RAP has been it's a broken system that's just got more broken, and I think it desperately needs a bit of a rethink. But that's my personal experience. Has it worked for you? Have you found that it's worked properly the way it should, or have you experienced problems as well?
I think on paper it works. In theory,
yeah.
Again, it's one of those things, as with everything, it's always the minority of people who ruin it for everyone else. But I think one of the biggest things needs to be consistency.
Yes.
Across the parks, across ride operators, it's how they administer it. Like I say, I think on paper it works. The system is there. If everyone used it how it should be used, it would work perfectly. I think steps have been taken in that way. I actually think using this access card system is better. It takes it out of Merlin's hands, which some people might say it's bad old Merlin aren't even controlling it anymore. But Merlin are never in a place to say, oh, yes, that's fine, you're disabled. It's really difficult to say you are disabled. That's fine. Here, have your ride access pass. It's one of those awkward situations. So handing it off to this access company that's what they do. They are the best people to say you're entitled to it. I mean, I can't complain too much. The reason we got my youngest...
Sorry.
Shut up. It's my watch kicking off there. The reason we got my youngest ride access pass is because we got the letter from the doctor saying he can't queue. This is before they brought in all this new system. But it was also a point where we hadn't had his diagnosis. We hadn't got his DLA. We hadn't got his blue badge. So we knew he needed it. The doctors knew he needed it, but with all autistic diagnoses, I don't know, plural of diagnosis. It's hoops you've got to jump through. I think we were fortunate with my youngest because we'd already been through it with my eldest. It was a lot quicker. I think it took us 5-6 years to finally get the full diagnosis for my eldest, whereas my youngest only took a year or so. But again, we knew what we were doing at that point, and he was in a better school to begin with, which really helped. But I think using this company, we'll see more consistency across the board about people who can use it. I mean, there's people who just used to get those letters from the doctors. They used to not bully the doctors, but they say, "Oh, can I need this letter to queue?" And you could pay for it from the doctors, and I don't think they will be too worried about giving out this letter. And then you get the people who are having a go at the people in guest services, saying, "Why can't I have this? You can't decide if I need it or not." And the poor people on guest services, they're just there on an hourly rate. It's not their fault. They're just following the rules.
I totally agree with you. I think that I don't necessarily agree with the move that Chessington have had to temporarily make.
No,
but I understand why they've had to do it. I think it stems from a problem for me that RAP was overissued. And as you rightly say there, you used to be able to get RAP if you could rock up to guest services with a letter from your doctor, which you could pay 45 quid for, that basically just said, he's got ADHD, he can't queue. And that was all you needed. And I think it was in that sense that Merlin's generosity, and I'm going to call it generosity because I think it came from the right place. They were trying to be as accommodating as they could be to everybody with additional needs, whether they be physical impairments or mental impairments or whatever. But they weren't in a position to make those kind of qualified decisions about who should and shouldn't be getting RAP. And I think what we're now going to see with because it's Nimbus, isn't it, who run the access card, who have taken over the decision making now. What is one, as you say, more consistent decision making, and two, that a lot of the people out there that have RAP that don't actually need RAP, that have only got RAP because they either got told that if, as you say, if they got a letter from the doctor, they could get it, or because somebody turned around and said, "Oh, well, if you get that, you can get RAP," and so they got it. And why wouldn't they? I don't blame those people at all. If somebody tells you that you can have something that's going to potentially mean that you don't have to queue up in a queue, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? So I don't blame those people at all. However, I think it's a system that has been, as I said, it's become a broken system because it's in a system that was abused. And I think what's happened is I've seen it myself, and I think you spoke briefly about it earlier with the whole vampire queuing thing. Certainly at Thorpe Park, I've seen it where the RAP queue is actually longer than the main queue line.
Yeah.
And you just sort of go, right, this isn't working. You know, the whole point of this wrap queue is that it should never, ever be even a fraction of the main queue line. So if it's now longer than the main queue line, then it's not working. And that can be for a number of reasons. Either one, it's not being implemented properly. And that's another issue. Is I think there's a real issue with staff training across parks personally. And it's inconsistent how it's administered, shall we say, from one staff member to another. Which causes problems itself. It's been overissued, and I know for 100% that you guys don't do it, but I have seen it where you've got a family where there's more than one member of the family qualifies for wrap. So what happens is they use one wrap card on ride X, get timed out, put that wrap card in their back pocket, pull out the other wrap card, go to ride Z. So they're never actually timed out. And again, that's another one of where then in which case the people who then feel bad, who then feel aggrieved by wrap, have a little bit of an argument in that perspective, in that sense. But as we say, it does now appear that Merlin are taking it by the scruff of its neck and saying, right, enough's enough. This can't go on. Unfortunately, Chessington have been forced into making some unpopular decisions over the number of times, that people can ride certain rides. And I'm sure they didn't want to do it. I don't believe for a second that somebody sat there and went, I know how we can stitch up the wrap users. Let's restrict them to one ride on Vampire a day. I don't believe for a second that was a decision that was made easily. They went over to the digital system, which obviously helped to reduce the amount of abuse that the card system allows for, but it doesn't completely eliminate it. And I think it's unfortunately, because there are still so many people, and because Chessington is such a popular park for people with children and for wrap users, it does seem to be very popular amongst people who are wrap holders. Whether that's just because it's the most popular park or what, I don't know. And it's just unfortunately it's created this situation, if you like. And I think it was always a pot simmering, waiting to boil over. And I think Merlin have actually been quite lucky that it's only now really starting to boil over. I'm hoping, and obviously I'll ask you in a second whether you agree with this, that now that this new qualification system is in place, I know that getting hold of those access cards from Nimbus is a whole lot more difficult. It requires a whole lot more medical evidence and that kind of thing. So what we'll actually gradually see is the number of wrap holders tapering off as people stop qualifying for them under the old system.
Yeah, so as the old yellow cards expire.
Yes, I think it's the end of this year, isn't it? That is the final yellow cards will be gone.
Depends on when. So this is my eldest, and his is 16th of July 2024. His runs out.
I think my wife's runs out May 2024. So yeah. So, but certainly by the end of next season, I think all the yellow cards will be gone, and hopefully, do you think that is good? I mean, as I say, I think that's going to help massively. Yeah. Do you agree that that's going to?
Yeah, I think it'll help a lot. As you say, it's always the minority of people who are in it for everyone else, and it's that minority who have got all of those yellow cards, and once they expire, they'll actually have to provide more evidence. It should help.
Yeah.
And you talked about inconsistency. That's the biggest thing, is consistency across not only the rides in the parks, but the parks themselves. And I mean, I do feel sorry for the ride operators. I've seen some of the comments about you don't want to have to deal with the attitudes of guests. And you feel sorry. You get the 18, 19-year-olds who are running these rides. They don't know about not knowing up, standing up to people, but they don't want to. They don't have the experience. They shouldn't have to. it's not their job to do that, to be in that situation in the first place.
No.
I don't know whether maybe they think about if they're putting someone on a ride access queue, maybe they look at the more experienced staff members. Is that possible? Is it feasible? Have they got? I don't know what the turnaround is on staff, to be honest.
I think, unfortunately, from the sort of limited experience, the turnover of staff seems to be quite high. Obviously, it's a seasonal job. For a lot of people, it's a sort of a first job sort of thing. It's that, I'm assured that Merlin probably don't pay the highest of wages. So you're then expecting people who are very young, as you say, on low wages to undertake quite a responsibility. And when you've got people shouting at you, I do have a degree of empathy here with obviously Stealth Fan and the comments there. However, I'm going to give the flip side of this coin, which I'm sure you found as well, which is when those wrap cards are being incorrectly and inconsistently completed by staff members. When you've got staff member on ride X filling it out correctly, and then staff member on ride Z doesn't even time it out. Staff member on ride A times it out for the wrong amount of time because you've already queued 40 minutes in the wrap queue before you've even got to the staff member, who then times it out for 40 minutes because that's the amount of time that the main queue is at. But then then you're essentially queued for 80 minutes.
Yeah, so there's no... I don't think I know of any rides where there's timed on the ride access queue. So obviously the main queue will have queuing systems in place and they'll know how long that queue is. I don't know of any rides that have that on the ride access queue.
Yeah.
So if you don't know how long that is, how can you accurately time it out? I mean, again, I don't suppose I blame the ride operator per se. They're only doing what they're told to do. If the queue is this long, that's what the time you write on the card. They might not necessarily know how long you've been queuing.
Yeah. And that's quite often, I think, when the shouting comes in, doesn't it? And so then, I get the frustrations on both sides in that perspective because, I've been in that situation where my wife and I have queued in a wrap queue, and it's not unknown for us to have actually had to end up queuing for 60 minutes, where my wife's ended up sat on the floor because she physically can't stand any longer, but really wants to do that ride, and she's not a complainer. She won't complain. I, on the other hand, am a bit more vocal. To then get to, the actual ride up, and the ride up go, main queue's at 60 minutes. And you're, hold on a minute, I've queued for 60 minutes, which is what I shouldn't have had to have done. So you now timing me out for 60 minutes is totally unfair. But again, I think a lot of that stems from too many wrap holders, because the wrap queue should never be getting to 60 minutes because it just shouldn't. But it's and I think, yes, I agree, Stealth Fan. I think there is a training issue across Merlin with, as far as wrap is concerned, that people are trained in to different levels, maybe, or by different people, or obviously I would never name names or point fingers or anything, but I've actually seen a wrap card where a ride op thought they were being funny, and what they actually wrote in the timeout section was 100 rides. Literally, that's what they wrote, because they thought, and that just showed me, and I'm sure you would agree here, Matthew, that the complete disrespect that ride op had for the wrap system.
Yeah.
And how much of a joke the system had become to that ride op. That, that rather than just not fill it in, they thought, well, I've got to fill it in. Let's put something funny. Might have been funny to him, but had that person then gone to another ride, and that wrap card has been incorrectly completed, who knows what problems they would have then faced if another ride up who actually did implement the system correctly started questioning You know, well, who's written this and why?
Yeah, I think that'll help with the digital system with Legoland and Chessington. I've got that again. You avoid that. It avoids that level of being able to. Trying to think of the words now. It's the same thing with moving ride access to that other company. It eliminates that member of staff having to not having to make a decision, but having to be accountable.
Yes, absolutely.
It eliminates that, and it makes it. You want to think it makes it easier for that staff member to say, "Well, I've scanned it," so they'll scan it. They're not in control of that.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, I don't know for certain, but they don't go on it and say, "This is how long it is." Because, well, I've never seen them do it. They just scan it and that's it. I'm assuming that pad's linked to the main queue line.
Again, that one unfortunately does fall down, because if you've queued to get to the person with the scanner, they then scan it and it times it out for the ride wait time at that moment.
Yeah, you can't
So
win.
if you've already queued 30 minutes, well, for me, I think a good idea is QR codes at the entrance. So as you walk in, you scan the QR code, that logs what time you entered the queue line. Then the ride up scans the wrap.
Yep.
And it can't be difficult. I mean, I'm not a computer person, but surely there's a program out there that can deduct one time from another to give you a timeout, and make this a better, and make that a fairer system. So that's one option. I think if we're keeping the system as it is, that's certainly one option. I think going over to the digital system is a good move, but it needs to be rolled out across all parks.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, although you've got both Chessington and Legoland operating digital systems, they are different systems in certain aspects. So you've got to know how to use two different digital systems already. What Merlin needs to do is introduce the Merlin wrap system. Boom, all 4 parks, job done.
Yeah, I've literally got them bookmarked. I've got one for Legoland, one for Chessington.
Yeah.
You have to sign in through them.
Which, when you're a parent with children trying to sort out your pass to scan to get in and everything else, it's a bit it's faff it's unnecessary faff, in my opinion. So I think it could just be.
I think I'm potentially a bit biased in the fact that, I mean, we had a chat about this before. I love my technology. I love my gadgets.
Yeah.
I'm very au fait. I'd like to think I'm very au fait with technology and scanning and things like that. So I personally find it easy to use. But again, that's because I used to work at Currys on the know-how.
Yeah.
That's what I used to do. I used to help people fix their gadgets, fix their software, fix when things are not working. I still do it in my job now. I'm on tech support with my company now. So for me, I'm not happy, but I'm quite easy to switch between different systems, and I can do it quickly and easily. But that's because I've had practice for many years of doing that sort of thing. For people, I mean, like yourself, who are maybe not, don't spend every waking minute in technology and reading up technology blogs and watching videos on technology and things like that. The average Joe, as it were. It's maybe not as simple, like you say. I mean, would an app be easier? I don't know.
One thing that's come to light, and actually it's come from Chessington, which I like the idea, and actually it would bring us into line with the rest of Europe and predominantly the world, which is scrapping physical queues. I don't know what our obsession is in the UK with physical queues. We're obsessed with them, and the more bizarre the queue, the better. We absolutely love it when these queues wind up for miles and miles and miles. Pointless, absolutely pointless. What I really like the idea is, and they've had to do it with Jumanji for Mandrill Mayhem, because it's got a low throughput. So there is no physical queue. it's a virtual queuing system. You book your ride. It buzzes when it's your time to go. You go, you get on, you do the ride, you get off, job done. So nobody's physically queuing. So while they're not physically queuing, they could be also logged to queue for another ride. So you're potentially able to queue for 2 rides at once. But while you're queuing for those 2 rides, you can then also go and spend money in the shop. I don't understand why we've not thought about this beforehand. I think it's I suppose the argument a lot of people have with this is that it puts everybody on a level playing field. There's no more wrap queue, real like physical queue. Everybody just virtual queues. So you go when your time's up, you do your ride, you come off. Those who can't walk down a longer walkway, there'll be an easier access entrance.
Yep.
So for people in a wheelchair, say, or who can't walk, more than 10 meters or something, there'll be a quick access entrance. And nobody's queuing. And for me, I think I like the idea of that. And I've spoken to my wife about it, because obviously she's the wrap holder. She's the one that has to deal with the situations in the sense of being the person who's suffering, shall we say, and she thinks it's a great idea, actually, that this being able to be sitting on a bench and go, I fancy doing Cobra next. Open up the app, go Cobra, book. And then once it's your time, it goes zzz, 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 come to Cobra. And I think that would eliminate a lot of that sneering, looking down on people with wrap. And surely it would drive add-on sales, as I say, because if you're not stood in a queue, because I will never use those in-queue cabins, purely because what tends to happen is as soon as you stop to buy something from them, everybody behind you goes, you've technically left the queue, and pushes past. So I never use those. And it's so, they could be got rid of. All those elaborate queuing areas that take up vast amounts of land. And I dread to think how much land actually is wasted in parks with physical queues. Could then be given over to other rides. Doesn't even have to be rides. It could just be other things to do, more interesting things, and as I say, for me, it sounds like a dream answer. I'm sure there are flaws to it, because, nothing is ever perfect. There'll always be something that isn't quite right with it, or it doesn't work for somebody. But I don't know. How do you feel about that? Having a completely virtual queuing system across the parks?
I think, like you say, it's difficult to judge. It depends on how it's implemented. What do you call it? What was Darren Brown's Ghost Train? That's got a virtual. You have to book a time for that, don't you? At Thorpe Park.
I believe you did, yes.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be like this year, but
I don't know what it's going to be like now. It used to be the same for Black Mirror Labyrinth as well, but that was removed. So there is no virtual queue for that anymore, as far as I'm aware. You now just go in.
Not last time we did it. I mean, I've done Black Mirror Labyrinth twice with the kids to see what it was like. It's one of those ones I want to try it. Let's see what it's like. They weren't fans. I don't have much experience of using the normal queues at the parks. Primarily because we're always using the ride access queues. And then the few that I have done, I've rarely ever done them as a full queue.
Yeah.
Because I can't just go off and go queue whilst my wife's got the kids for so long. I'll try and balance it. If it's maybe 15, 20 minutes, I'll go queue.
Yeah.
Anything longer than that, I just can't do. Smiler's a bit different because Smiler's got single rider, so that's not too bad.
Yeah.
I can't think the last one. I mean, again, Nemesis, I only ever used to do that after 10 minutes.
Yeah. So I think, like you say, we've got children as well. I've got a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, and quite often, it's either me or my wife that can queue. She's the wrap holder, so sometimes that means that she can go and quickly do a ride and come off, and and whatever, obviously. But if I want to go and queue and do a ride, and I'm joining the main queue, as you say, it can take me out of a massive for quite a chunk of the day if it's a particularly popular ride, unless there's single rider queues, like you say, which have been introduced now on Soar, which jury's still out on whether that's actually having a positive impact or not. I'm yet to see it. I would say I'm yet to see it correctly being used. I think that's just an experience thing, or at least that's what I'm hoping, because obviously you see it on the Smiler, and I think they're quite efficient at using it on Smiler. Trains don't leave with empty seats. If there's people in that single rider queue, those trains go out full. I'm not just, whereas I've still seen Soar cars going out empty or with empty seats, despite a single rider queue. I think that's just an experience and a training thing, or at least that's what I'm hoping, and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because it's new. They've not used it before on that particular ride, so hopefully that will help alleviate a lot of the problems. Just obviously reading the comment here from Stealth Fan, saying that even with a virtual queue, you need a physical queue because you can't have an hourly pre-booked queue for a ride with a 1,000 people per hour that's just all funneled through, no queue. Why does it have to be an hourly pre-book? Why can't it be a 10-minute pre-book?
I think you'd be surprised because what's the word? Ghost Train, I think, was 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You book a 15-minute slot, and I remember doing it, and I still stood there for half an hour waiting to go in.
Yeah. See, for me, then I think what's happened there is that it's not being managed.
Yeah, potentially.
If a 15-minute slot is what's been allocated, that means that somebody has stood there and worked out how long it should take to get in, through, and out. If it's not taking 15 minutes, then either the timing from the person who set the timer is unrealistic, which is also possible, of course. We all know what productivity targets, and I'm sure it probably uses some very similar software. But also I think there's, again, training elements and that kind of thing. But for me, I understand what they're saying about an hourly pre-book, but why does it have to be hourly? If you're saying that a ride can take 1,000 people per hour, I'm just going to do the quick maths in my head. Divide that by 60 minutes is what about 150 people every 10 minutes?
Something
so
like that,
100 a queue of 150 people is not a big queue at all. Not really. It's so, and if it's moving and that's fine. But I think I'm not. And as we said, there is no perfect answer. Of course, there isn't. These are all just ideas that that I've discussed with other park users and other wrap users as well. And who would love to see a system that didn't make them look singled out, shall we say? So I think that virtual queuing system is one potential answer. I'm not saying it's the only answer or it's the perfect answer, but it's certainly one. I don't know. Is there something else that you think, Matthew, that you think actually this might work better?
Like you say, there's no real right answer. You run the risk with a virtual one, because I suppose the only real virtual queue for ride access, certainly at the moment, is Flight of the Skyline. Well, I say virtual queue, one where you have to book.
Yeah.
That's what I should say. You run the risk of, I don't know how often have you been on Flight of the Skyline? I can't even say it properly. Flight of the Skyline. You sat there 10 minutes refreshing. Can I get a slot? Can I get a slot? Can I get a slot?
Yes.
It fills up like that, and it's the only thing you have to be very careful of with those sort of systems. I suppose with ride access, I mean, Flight of the Skyline, you're limited to one per day, and you have to be logged in to use it. So that's the thing. How would you efficiently manage that with a non-ride access queue? Where, I mean, would you say to people you can only go on this ride once a day? What sort of
that, for the time being, is what has been introduced on Mandrill Mayhem. So everybody only gets to ride it once a day.
Yeah.
So again, in the interest of fairness, it's non-discriminatory in the sense of whether you are rap or non-rap, you can only ride Mandrill Mayhem once a day. Obviously, in the quieter periods, I assume that they will probably relax that. I can't imagine them enforcing that during off-peak term time weekdays.
It's a difficult one to judge. I mean, whilst I understand it for Mandrill Mayhem because it's going to be popular and they can say, right, we need to get this out. We need to get as many people on this ride first time possible. But then when you start getting onto the other ride, like you get people who want to do Smiler so many times in a row or Nemesis in a row and things like that. How would you? It's not something for us to answer easily.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
I suppose that's the advantage of just having a physical queue. There's no limits there. If someone wants to do one ride over and over again, they can do. That's their choice if they're happy to queue. Whereas with the virtual queue, I don't know whether you find that more difficult. I don't know. I mean, I don't have much experience of other parks. Last time I did Disneyland was 5.5 years ago, and that was before we had anything for any of the boys. My youngest was only just turned 1. But we were lucky because we went away for our honeymoon. We stayed in the suite and we had an unlimited fast pass. It was a VIP fast pass, so I didn't even have to book a time for that one. So I don't even have experience of using the timed fast pass because it's one of those ones you can only get if you stay in a suite. Because it was our honeymoon, that's the one we booked. So I think the other fast passes at Disneyland, you go and scan it and you get a time, and you would get I think if you stayed in a hotel, you got 2 fast passes per day or something.
Yeah.
Whereas because we were in the suite, we had the unlimited VIP fast pass.
Okay.
So I literally walked up and said, "Here's my pass," and I went, "Yeah, and just go in." So again, my experience from that point of view is a bit skewed from even using other queues.
I mean, I'm obviously I've got a number of friends who are regular European park visitors, and they all rave about virtual queuing. That it definitely helps with throughput on rides. It doesn't necessarily eliminate the need for a wrap, but it makes it at least look fairer in the sense. I mean, not that wrap is unfair, but the problem is that wrap is seen as being unfair because and sometimes rightly so, as we've said, because of the abuse, the poor implementation, and things like that. I can understand why people who are non-wrap feel that way sometimes because I've seen things on Facebook even advising people how to cheat wrap, how to get wrap when you wouldn't necessarily qualify for it. I mean, this is historically. I'm not saying these are recent things. This is historically. I've seen this, and it angers me because, and I'm praying that those people who wrote those posts, who are quite likely the people who under the new system wouldn't qualify for wrap, actually then don't get their wrap anymore. And that it actually goes back to being a system for those that need it. There's always going to be people who, unfortunately, no assessment system is perfect. So there's always going to be people, even with Nimbus taking control of it and their vast experience of this kind of assessment, there's always going to be people who possibly should qualify for it but haven't quite met or haven't met the criteria that Nimbus have. So I think that maybe there's, I mean, I don't know, I haven't looked into it yet myself, because as it stands, unfortunately, until, long story short, DWP and us are going to a tribunal at the moment, and because of a decision following reassessment for us. Unfortunately, that reassessment decision now means that we wouldn't be able to get RAP under the new system because of the qualifying criteria that Nimbus have. Now, that's fine. I don't disagree with that at all. And I'm not saying that Nimbus should make an exception in our case, because they shouldn't, because if they start doing that, they're going to end up in the same situation that Merlin were in. But and it's not going to be perfect, but I do think it's going to massively help. A lot of the complaints I've heard, as you may well have done, being on social media, is about Chessington recently and their restriction of 1 ride a day on certain rides for RAP users. And people have jumped up and down about this, and actually it's quite angered me, because as you identified, Skylion, since opening, has restricted RAP users to 1 ride a day.
Yep.
And that's now just taken. Which, you know,
as soon as you change anything,
which
people have got used to being,
which, so it's not a mass, it's not like it's a brand new thing. I also spoke to somebody else who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but was very, very was very I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but really wanted me to mention this, which is Polton's Park, which many of us rave about as being a wonderful, wonderful park. And I'd actually forgotten about this because we went to Polton's Park last year. Polton's Park only allow RAP users 1 ride per day on every single ride.
Yep.
Now, Chessington haven't implemented that. They've just said, in the interim, because of the situation, we felt that this is the fairest thing that we can do to try and help everybody get a ride on certain rides. So it's kind of like, well, why are we jumping up and down about Chessington doing this as a temporary measure when we've got a park that is their measure, that is their RAP, is, you know, it is that you only get to have 1 ride per day on any of their rides if you are a RAP user, unless you want to go and queue, which then makes me question, well, did you really need RAP in the first place if you think that going to queue is an option? You know, but that opens up a whole another can of worms, doesn't it? So I'm struggling to, and I feel a little bit for Chessington actually on this score, as I'm sure you probably do as well. That, you know, that they've been forced into a decision that, as we said earlier, they probably didn't take lightly. But they're being absolutely hammered for it. When there's a park where that is their policy.
Yeah, I mean, I keep looking at Polton's Park, and because I'd love to try Tornado Springs, and you see all the videos, and you'd love to try it, but that one reason is why we've not. Because again, it comes back to that initial thing. We'd have to pay for that day out.
Yes,
and it's not a short trip for us. Is it Southampton way? Is it not?
It is. Yes, yeah. It's down in.
Yeah, so that's a good. It's a good 8-hour drive for me.
It could well be. Yeah. It was a good 2 and a bit hour drive for us.
Yeah, the southern parts are easy for us because it's straight down the M1. It's only 4 hours.
Yeah.
And it's this side of London as well, so they're easy to get to. Whereas obviously Polton's Park, I've got to go down the M1 and then across. It's just be a nightmare. So that's one of the reasons why I've not even really considered Polton's Park.
Yeah.
And a lot of the parts as well, I want to wait. Again, it comes back to having the Merlin pass. wait till the kids are old enough and tall enough to make the most out of that park.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
Um,
Which is why I noticed when I was looking through your videos, I was like, oh, there's no Thorpe Park here. And then I sort of looked and thought, hold on, why would you go to Thorpe Park? Actually, if you happen to be in the south, I would say go and do Thorpe Park, because
we've done it.
I did it. I'm preparing a video at the moment for informational purposes on what actually is available at Thorpe Park if you've got children who are under 1.4.
We've done it once or twice. We certainly haven't done it nearly as much as the others, but we have done it 2-3 times now, something like that. I mean, I say the kids enjoy it. You've got things like the detonator.
Yep.
What's detonator? 1.3. So my youngest can't do detonator, but the other two can. But we don't go there as often as the others, primarily for that reason. But again, it's that thing. I've got the pass. I might as well go. I'm not losing out by going.
No, absolutely.
One thing we do try and do is always go when there's an event, so that we can get the most out of that day. Whether it's Carnival, Mardi Gras, Fright Nights, we're going down. I think our next trip is planned end of May, beginning of June. So sort of back end of half term, we're going down. We're taking the mother-in-law. We ended up actually this Christmas on that £0 joining fee. We actually bought a gold pass for the mother-in-law. Christmas present, because she didn't need the bank holidays. She's wheelchair bound, so can't do all the rides, but she enjoys coming with the kids. She likes sort of live vicariously through them. I think in Chessington, the only ride we managed at Chessington with her was the merry-go-round, because she can't even walk without the wheelchair. But she loves going. She loves seeing the kids' faces. So we bought her this pass, and then I think the trip we're planning in London basically pays for that pass, because we've got a couple of days at Chessington, Legoland, Thorpe Park. We're going into London to do. So you've got Shrek and London Eye, Sea Life,
London Dungeon, Sea Life, Two Swords. There's loads there.
We've only just started doing the dungeons in the past few weeks. Because we weren't sure how the kids would react.
Yes, I can.
We did. We went over the first time. We went over to York, because York is our local one. I can drive over to York. It's about 10-15 miles for me. So that's the sort of thing I can drive over. If I don't like it, I can leave. I've not wasted a whole day out. We ended up putting into. You heard of Jorvik there? The Viking Museum. So we did that as well. They're literally next door to each other. A dungeon, the Jorvik, about a 2-minute walk. And we have the. Have you heard of the Max card? It's for sort of disabled kids. You can have a Max card.
Oh yes, I've heard. Yes.
So one of the things you get free into Jorvik, you can get free with the Max card.
Okay, that's good.
So, and again, they've never been it, so we might as well try it. And they enjoyed it. So they weren't 100% with the dungeons.
Okay.
But they enjoyed it. And then we ended up, when we went without my eldest, we did the Alton Towers dungeon.
Right.
Because again, that's paid for. Well, I don't want to take my eldest to that. The middle two were, the youngest two, they were all right with it. My youngest loved it. My youngest sits there with his ear defenders on. Have you done the plague doctor bit when he comes right into your face?
Yes.
The pics on my wife, and he's just sat there laughing away, and they've got little sprayed and guts everywhere. Just absolutely loving it.
London is excellent. I think it's the best of the dungeons, and I think York probably comes in at second, actually, from what I've heard. I've not actually been to York as yet, but I'm hearing a lot of people saying that York is probably the next best after London. I think
York helps because it's got a lot of history there. So they've got a lot of inspiration to pull from for York.
Yeah, and I think that's why London works too. Because obviously, you've got those things like Sweeney Todd, etc. And Jack the Ripper, which they can pull from. London has a very rich, dark history.
York, London, you've got a Viking section in the York. We've got Guy Fawkes, because Guy Fawkes is from around here.
Yes.
He's from York. So they pull into that.
Yeah.
I think that the few things, like my eldest, he doesn't like air cannons at all. So like Black Mirror, he really struggled with the air cannons there.
Yeah.
So I think we're glad we didn't take him to Alton Towers, because there was a couple there that he didn't like, but
Right.
he wouldn't have liked. So I'm glad I didn't take him, so I didn't have to pay for him there. But I'm glad we did the Alton Towers ones, but I wouldn't do it again, mainly because you have to pay for it.
Yes.
Separate.
Yeah. I
It
agree.
wasn't too bad. We got a carers free. So I think it was 15 quid for all four of us, something like that.
Yeah.
With the past discounts, it wasn't overly expensive, but it's still extra money you have to spend on the day, especially when you can go do them for free.
I was going to say it's a whole nother argument, this one that you've touched on there, about why Alton Towers charge to enter their dungeon just because it's on park, when all the other dungeons that are off park are free entry to Merlin pass holders. But I think that's Warwick does, because it's part of the attraction. Again, so those two, Warwick and Alton Towers, charge because they're part of a bigger attraction. Yep. All the others, when they are separate attractions, are included in the pass entry fees, which is, to me, is absolutely ludicrous. You know,
I don't understand
but that's another argument for another day. Just going back to a comment here from Stealth Fan about the Nimbus method of eligibility. I'm sure it has been agreed with Merlin and run by their lawyers, but what I'm saying is that the eligibility criteria has changed. It has become more difficult now, that what they require as a standard sort of Nimbus thing, and Merlin would have had to have signed up to Nimbus's agreed policy on this with their lawyers and everybody else, is that the eligibility criteria is no longer as simple as your GP writing a paid for letter saying so and so cannot queue. That is no longer good enough. What they now want to see is the kind of evidence that you would have to submit to the Department for Work and Pensions if you were applying for things like personal independence payments or for disability living allowance and those kind of benefits. That is now the sort of evidence they want to see, and they want to see that evidence very specifically identifies queuing as a difficulty as a result of your condition. I have looked into this because I'm obviously going to have to reapply for my wife going forward, and we've looked at what the new eligibility criteria is, and that is the criteria now, whereas in the past you literally could rock up to guest services with a letter from your GP saying he's got fibromyalgia, which is what my wife has, can't queue, love from Dr. Jones, essentially. Stamp paid for 50 quid. You know, it was basically that simple, as I'm sure you know, Matthew. You've probably seen it.
I mean, like I said, we actually did that for my youngest.
Yeah, and in some cases, it's absolutely, you know, it's right, because, as you say, until that statement was issued for your youngest, then you probably couldn't. But
we didn't actually pay for ours. We got it. We actually got it from our pediatrician as part of the ongoing process of getting the diagnosis.
Yeah,
she looked at him and gone, yes, he's needed it, but we're not quite at the process. It's not far enough down the process to get the full diagnosis yet, but I understand that you need this help. So there's your letter, and we didn't pay for it.
Yeah, and that obviously would be, I think that would be accepted, because, as you say, it's part of the ongoing diagnosis process. It's when it's those GP letters that used to get people without question. You know, your letter could literally come from Dr. Jones's surgery down the road, just written saying can't queue, needs wrap, signed. Here we go. Oh yeah, that's a doctor's letter. There you go. There's your wrap card. So it's going to eliminate that, which I just wanted to clarify that. Night, Adam. Thanks for joining. If anybody has any quick questions, because I'm very, very conscious that we've talked about wrap at great length now, and I appreciate, Matthew, that you have stuck in, and it's I feel it's something that needed to be addressed. I have just run a quick poll in the live chat about whether people think that virtual queuing would work better. It's very much a I'd say it's not as closely run as 50-50. It was 67%, 9 votes. 67% of people think that virtual queuing would work better. I'm not saying that I was very specific about whether it would work better, not that it was the answer. Only 33% of people said no. So, it does seem that in general, people think that virtual queuing might make the situation better. So I think, maybe that is something that can be explored at a greater length. I do know that there was a question way back in the live chat about your favorite, I think it was favorite themed kids ride asked by Theme Park Thrilling. They asked right at the beginning of the show, and Em asked them to wait till towards the end of the show. Yeah. And bless them, they probably. I'm hoping that they're still here. I am going to try and find the question, because it was a nice question to, well, wrap the show up on if that's the case. Here we go. What is your favorite kid themed ride that you've been on in the UK?
Kid themed ride. Difficult one. I suppose Gruffalo is the best themed. I mean, it's maybe not the best ride.
Agreed.
But it's certainly, the kids like watching. It's difficult for us to judge from our perspective, isn't it? I know the boys certainly they like looking around at Gruffalo and watching the story and things like that. I know my youngest son's favourite ride is Vampire. Currently, who knows if that might change with Jumanji? Who knows? I think I've got a load of kids who they're thrill seekers, so they love Wicker Man.
See, my 7-year-old is also a Wicker Man fan. Loves the theming, loves the pre-show. That he loves the fact that it's so immersively dark. So. Yeah, I think I would go with you from our perspective. Wicker Man probably is where that would go.
See, I haven't been on Wicker Man in a couple of years now, because I'm in the unfortunate situations where I'm a bigger chap, I'm 6 foot, and I've got size 13 feet.
Yeah.
So all of those combined means I don't fit properly in the Wicker Man rides.
It is a little bit discriminatory as far as size is concerned.
I think it's a combination of everything inside larger, taller, and big feet. Because it's the point where, because my feet are so big, I can't cross them and they go there lower to then get into the right place. And then with the longer legs, and then it's just all of that combined.
Yeah.
But they changed it, because I went on the very first season we got the pass. I could go on Wicker Man.
That's interesting.
And then I think the next season, I remember speaking to the ride operator, they actually tightened it.
Right.
And then I couldn't go on.
That's
which
not
is
very helpful, is it?
I can fit on 13. It's tight on 13, but I can.
Okay. And they use a similar lap barring system, don't they? To
and then it's a bit. I don't know. It's a bit weird. So, like The Walking Dead, I got on that no problem. But then
that's quite unforgiving.
You can stick your legs out on that one. I found if I was at the front, I could actually stretch my legs out in that one. I didn't have to cross them.
Yes.
So that was interesting. I went on that as a single rider. I ended up getting sat next to some random foreign bloke who didn't speak English. Because you have to sit 2 and 2 on Walking Dead.
You do. That's right. Yes, and I believe they've now another ride where I don't think single riders used correctly. What happens is you come down the single rider queue, but you get merged into the room, and then by the time you get to the station to load, nobody knows who was a single rider and who wasn't. And then all of a sudden you end up with a situation where you've got single riders with no other single rider. And then the ride op at the station has got to do the whole process all over again. Are there any single riders in the queue? And trying to pair them back up. And I think
so when I did it, they did it as you had to have an even amount at the very gate. So I went in when it was really quiet. So I was the only person in the single rider.
Right.
So I'm having to wait for an odd numbered people to come through the queue. And I was almost ready to leave, and then luckily I found these people and I went on.
Yeah, that's good. Just a question here, which I'll obviously I'll let you answer, and then I think I might answer as well if my answer is potentially different to yours. Do you think if Merlin charged a small fee for the wrap cards, that it would deter the amount of abuse it currently has now?
Yes. I mean, they charge for the access card. It's a very difficult situation. They charge for the access card, but the access card isn't part specific, is it?
No.
It's like it's an overall thing for lots of different places.
Yes.
Whereas if you rock up to a park, and I say if you rock up to a park and say to people you have to pay for the access card to use the ride access, that's a difficult one. But Drayton Manor do that, I believe. When I was looking up Drayton Manor, they don't run their own sort of ride. They run the ride access system, but they don't run their own.
No, they don't. No, that's correct. Because
bring your access card.
We went to Drayton Manor and looked into the wrap situation, and actually, in the end, just ended up deciding that my wife just wouldn't ride anything because it was quite complex and there was a charge, which it put us off even applying for wrap for there. Personally, I don't think it actually would. I think if people are determined to get something, I suppose what you got to look at is that fee would have to be, in order to put people off, would have to be more than the cost of a fast track.
Yeah.
Because that's what the people who abuse the wrap system, who get wrap because they just can get it, see it as a fast track system, a queue jumping system. So the only way you're going to deter those people is if that small charge actually was for more than a day's unlimited or gold fast track. And you're never going to get away with that because that's total discrimination.
Yeah.
And I think even charging a small fee per wrap card or per park is a form of discrimination, because I know a lot of people who qualify for wrap, who are on essentially the breadline, and who actually would, that would be maybe a charge too far with regards to them being able to enjoy something that they that they want to be able to enjoy. And and most wrap users, genuine wrap users, would love to be able to join the normal queue. My wife would absolutely love to be able to queue with normal people and just and not have to be having all these special differentiations to make it possible for her to ride and enjoy a day at a park. She would love nothing more than to make a full recovery from her condition and be able to just join that main queue. So I personally don't think a fee is the answer. I think that Merlin have probably done the best thing by handing over the qualification criteria to a company that is experienced in making those assessments and collating that kind of evidence and doing that. I think is a massive step forward. But it's certainly an interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I think the access card, I can live with 15 quid for a 3-year card as well. I can live with that fee.
Yeah.
But like you say, people who want to do it, they just pay it. Like I say, 15 quid is for a 3-year card. It's next to nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a one-off payment like that, but what I suspect that Sean there was suggesting maybe was a charge each time, or each park.
Certainly not each time, I don't think.
And then if you're a family like us that visits all 4 Merlin parks regularly, even if it's just one annual charge per park, of say, I don't know what a nominal figure would be, 20 quid. That's £80 a year, just so that my wife can enjoy the same kind of day that somebody that doesn't have the same restrictions as her. And I think you're then very, very close to bordering onto that. You know, that's a similar scenario as Chessington restricting the ride you can do. You know, I think that's you're heading that way.
I think one thing that is good, sort of touching on that charge, is that with Legoland and Chessington, you can actually pay to add people onto your pass, can't you? So obviously with your ride access, you get the rider and then up to 3 other people, for 4 people in total.
Yes.
But you can pay for an extra person. Which, like for us, when we were a family, well, we are a family of 5, but before we had the second ride access pass, we not struggled, but it would affect how we would use it, because we wouldn't all go. Theoretically, we couldn't all go on the same ride at the same time.
Yeah,
that's not to say we didn't, because there have been times where if the queue's quiet, we have gone up as a family of 5 and tried our luck, and say if they let us on, great. I'm not going to argue the point if we can all go on as a family, especially like Gruffalo let you on anyway. If you're a family of 5, you can use 5 on certain rides. So I think Gruffalo is one of them.
I think so.
I can't think. Sorry?
I'm sure Gruffalo's changed to 4 now.
Has it changed?
Do you not remember being on the boat on your own? I've got a picture of you sat in a Gruffalo boat on your own.
Yeah, I know there's a picture of me in a boat by myself, but at one point it was 5. It tends to be the ones where it's like a group, or Congo River Rapids as well will allow you as well, I think.
Yes, I think that, yes, you might be right. I think the paying for the additional person is actually a good idea, because as you say, families like yourself, when my older children are with us, from my previous marriage, that we're a family of 6. And so like you, we then have to manage who wants to do what ride. Obviously, we've got the 2 younger ones who can't do everything. But even so, it's then a case of, okay, so who's going to use wrap with my wife? Who's going to use main queue because my wife needs to be the one looking after the children. So quite often I don't ever get to, I didn't get to use wrap with my wife, because actually I was with the children while she did the wrap, and then she would come back and then I'd have to go and join the main queue. So you know, that's a difficult one to
want to go on as a family, and having that option to pay to add, because you're paying for an extra fast track, aren't you, as far as I'm aware?
I think that's essentially how it works.
They just link it with ride access to allow you to do that.
Yes.
I mean, so thankfully now we don't have to do that because we've got the 2 ride accesses.
Yeah. I like Stealth Fan's answer here about a simple rule. If you get caught abusing the system, you get the wrap access revoked, escorted off the park with a minimum 37-year ban. As much as I would love that to happen, good luck catching the people abusing the system, because
technically that's what it is. Technically, that's what I'm just reading the back of this pass now, and it says, for use by reverse named and photographed person only, attempted use by another person will be deemed as misuse. Misuse, regardless of reason, will result in the pass being revoked without return.
Yeah.
So technically that's what they have, although I like the 37-year ban.
Yeah, me too. Again,
but say how do you?
It comes back to, and I can say this from personal experience, and I'm talking about recent visits to parks with friends who are wrap holders. And obviously I know that the process is you go to the queue, you go up the wrap queue, and the person who's batching or whatever that you call it should ask for your card and your ID card.
Yep.
They should check that the names match and then time you out. I had a whole day recently at a park with a wrap user where they weren't asked for their ID card once. Not one single ride operator asked to see an ID card.
You'll actually find that happens more at Chessington and Legoland.
Well, I can say this was Thorpe
You've got
Park.
the QR code. Say that again, sorry?
This was Thorpe Park.
Yeah, when you've got the paper one, it doesn't. So Alton Towers and Thorpe Park, I don't find it happens quite as often.
Yeah.
Because you've got, they know there's two parts of it. There's the paper bit and a bit.
Yeah.
Whereas the digital ones with the QR code, I find often you're not asked.
Yes, actually, you are very right on that, because I tested this at Chessington, and I don't mind admitting that I tested it, and it was done purely in the interest of, were they checking? Because my wife said, I don't think they're checking my wrap. I think they're literally just scanning. They see the QR code, they scan it, and away you go. And I went, no, surely, because obviously with wrap, the picture does appear slightly above the QR code on the app. And she went, yeah, but if you just move it slightly up the screen so that the picture's hidden, they can't see that. And nobody's asked me to scroll it down. And I thought, okay, well, we'll test this, because I'd like to think, I think that's how it was, or that it's on there somewhere, maybe, or I can't remember what it was anyway.
I think it's like a name.
That's right. It says the name. But you can scroll it up slightly up so that the name isn't visible.
Have a look.
And so I took her phone with the QR code for Vampire that she'd booked as a wrap user up to the person at the top of the at the top of the wrap queue. They literally scanned, didn't check it once. I literally held the phone up. They went beep, through you go, without a check. And I went, oh my God. And I was literally crapping myself that I was going to get caught, which would have been okay. And I was still crapping myself because I don't like being caught doing anything that I shouldn't be doing. I'm very much a very straight down the line person like that. This was purely for test purposes, and I got through without question. No.
Yeah.
So as you say, I think in that sense, yes, the digital system can be abused.
I think one thing that reminds me of some of the struggles of the digital system is phone signal. Like,
yes,
it's one thing we learned with Vampire very quickly. Once you get into the ride access queue at Vampire, you lose your phone signal. If you're outside, you're fine. Well, to be fair, even in that little bit, there's something like a dead spot. Well, there is anyway.
Yeah.
When you get in, you lose phone signal. So you have to remember to redeem your QR code before you get in.
Yeah.
So that's one disadvantage of the digital system. If there's no phone signal, you can't do anything. I mean, yes, you lose your battery on your phone, but at least that's something you can take a battery pack, you can sort that. When you've got no phone signal, there's no work around that. You can't do anything about that yourself.
Yeah.
So that's one. Yeah, it's a flip side, isn't it? There's always a downside to everything. I think it's got better. Vampire's the only one I certainly remember where you lose signal, but it's just something you have to be careful of. Which obviously you don't have with the paper version.
Yes, I think that. Yeah, and again, it swings and roundabouts, isn't it, for the two systems? That all we can hope is that going forward, that Merlin can get a better grip of it, and I think everything we've touched on is what needs to be addressed. Training needs to be better. The system needs to be managed better, which hopefully they've addressed with handing it over to somebody with experience of making these kind of qualified decisions. And I think we can just hope that as a result, the system will improve. As we've said, virtual queuing is a possibility. It's not necessarily a perfect fit or a perfect answer, but I think it could be one that could help in a lot of the situations. Yeah, it's just one of those, isn't it? It's one of those topics, I think, that could just go round and round and round and round without ever coming to an answer that genuinely fits everybody and pleases everybody.
I don't know whether we've just managed, as British people, we managed without virtual queuing because we are so good at queuing. Not to fall into that stereotype, but we are just reasonably good at queuing as opposed to when you go to Europe, just the culture isn't geared up to queuing. I know when I tried queuing in Disneyland, it was a nightmare for some of the queues because they don't have that queuing etiquette drilled into them from the age of 0. So obviously in Britain, we're quite lucky in that respect, and that's why it works.
Yep.
As it does. So, yeah, I don't think there's no right answer.
No.
Just in the comment there asking if my thing's a poster or a green screen. It's a
yes.
screen.
I noticed that right from the get go, and I know that there is a VR background option on StreamYard because I've used it in a past episode where I put a great big stealth scene behind myself, and I didn't green screen it that time, but I know
it works. I did try the virtual background, but it doesn't. It virtually cuts you off here.
Yes,
so it doesn't look great when you get the green screen. As you can see here, it's much clearer.
Oh yes, and it's not cutting you off.
To be very well lit.
Yes,
the only downside.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I love it. I must admit, when you came on, I was like, "Ooh, that's brilliant. I love that."
The only problem is I can't zoom. You can just see here, but the edge of it stops there.
Right, do you know what? Actually, until you said my wife, I hadn't noticed it. Well, I think that's the end of the questions. I think we've discussed a great length, and all that remains for me to say is thank you so much for giving up your time tonight to come in and discuss what is a very contentious subject. But I just thought that because it's something that affects both yourself and myself and many other people, and especially at the moment, it's become very controversial because of moves being made by certain parks, certain companies, etc. And it's the elephant in the room, isn't it, that people are scared to address, I think, sometimes, and I think because they don't want to come across as being discriminatory. But if it's addressed correctly, in a constructive way, then and that's the way it should be addressed. And I think that we've done that and managed that tonight. And
it's one of those things that you can't really comment or talk about or criticize on until you've had experience of it.
Agreed. Yes, absolutely agree.
You'd like to think that people from Merlin are sat there talking to people who with those needs and bringing up those rules.
Yes,
but obviously we only know what they're doing, but you'd like to think that's what they're doing. It's certainly interesting from my perspective. My mum was a special needs teacher. 40 odd years. So I grew up. I used to, when I had a training day, she'd take me to school with her. Back when that was allowed. I mean, I was obviously only 13, 14, so I was still old enough. But I used to like going into school with her and helping her with some of her kids, and that would be really rewarding. But it's certainly a completely different perspective having kids of my own with that, dealing with that 24/7. I say dealing, experiencing it 24/7. There are times where it does certainly feel like you are dealing with it.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes. And as I say, I admire any parent with children with those additional needs, because parenting anyway is a hard enough job. When somebody then throws you a curveball as well on top of that, this job's really, really, really difficult, and we're just going to make it a bit more difficult. So I admire anybody that is in that situation, and I think it's fantastic, and I think it's great that we're in a place where, as I said in the early part of the show, that awareness is so much better, that places now do what they do to even try to accommodate those children and make it feel like they can be part of the same kind of things that all the other children can enjoy, because sometimes it is just minor modifications of things that can make a massive difference. So I think we're stepping in the right direction. I think we've still got a long way to go.
One of the best things we had, when was it, 3-4 years ago, is when they changed all the criteria for blue badges. That massively helped.
Yes.
So when we first got that diagnosis for our eldest, he wasn't eligible for a blue badge. And then I think it was the August of, well, he's now on to his second one, so we're talking 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
And he got it straight away. There was no, I think I'm quite lucky with our council. I have spoken to other people in different councils who have struggled, whereas we've been quite lucky and they've gone, yeah, that's fine.
We've been very lucky with our council. But yes, like you, I've heard of some horror stories of hoops that people have had to jump through to try and get blue badges and still not actually manage to get them at the end, despite the fact that they are, essentially unable to walk at all. But
I had comments about people who've said, why would I get a blue badge? I don't drive and never go in a car. I'm like, well, why wouldn't you? Not just because it enables you to park in a blue badge bay, but like the carer's pass for Merlin, show the blue badge, that's it straight away. There's no extra. I don't have to take all this extra paperwork in just to prove to get a carer's pass. They take the blue badge. And a lot of other places are like that. Show the blue badge. It's sort of a proof of disability.
Yes, absolutely.
And the fact it's not linked to a car. It's linked to you.
Yeah.
Even if you do go with someone, you can take your blue badge. Like we can go park. When we go into London, we park under National Theatre, just up south.
Oh yeah.
Which is in the congestion zone, but because we've got the blue badge, we're lucky enough we don't have to pay for that congestion zone charge.
Yeah.
So we still pay for the parking. We just don't have to pay for that. So it just makes it a little bit easier in that respect.
Absolutely. Yes, of course. Well, as I say, thank you so much for coming in tonight.
No problem at all.
For those of you watching, if you haven't already subscribed to Adventures with Autism, please go and check out their YouTube channel and, of course, their Instagram account. The links for both are included in the description for tonight's video. Thank you, everybody in the live chat, for your contributions to the topic and to the conversation, and the respectful way that they've come across, and the suggestions that have come in for what, as we identified, is a controversial subject. But as I say, thank you so much, Matthew, for your giving up your time tonight to come and talk to us. I've loved it, and I look forward to seeing more family vlogs in the not too distant future.
During the summer. There's always more videos.
Yeah. Vloggers are always snowed under during the summer, aren't they? And then we're scratching for content during the winter. It's very much a seasonal hobby in that respect. But yeah, so I look forward to seeing more of those. But on that note, thank you so much, and I'll say goodbye to you and wrap the show up. So thank you very much for coming in, and I'll see you very soon. Take care for now.
See you later.
Bye. There we go. Matthew from Adventures with Autism. What a great show it's been tonight. I appreciate, guys, it's gone on for 2 hours. It was a massive subject that we've addressed tonight. And I thank you all for sticking with us. And as I say, for the respectful comments and contributions that we've had tonight, for what is potentially a very inflammatory subject. Next week, I'm just trying to think, what's the date next week? Of course, next week, 15th, is Mike from Journey to the Attractions is coming back to tell us all about his challenges. If you remember, I did a nervous chat with Mike a while ago where he was telling us that his plans this year were to do a lot of challenge-based videos. And those of you that are familiar with Mike's Journey to the Attractions channel will see that he's been very true to his word, and we've seen lots and lots of theme park challenge videos coming out, including one that I featured in myself. So I'm very keen to get Mike back to talk about how he's finding his challenging season. Did you like that? Challenging season, and what plans he's got for more challenges going forward, and how many people have actually messaged now asking to take on the Challenger Championship and try and beat my points total for the episode that I did. So that's next week, Monday, 8 p.m. Here for a nervous chat. Sunday night, which is the night before Chessington opening. I'm hoping to do a little live from the Chessington Hotel that I'm staying at Sunday night. Obviously, it will be on the back of having attended the pass holder preview slot at Jumanji World on the Sunday. So that could be quite an exciting show. I look forward to giving you my early feedback and opinion, and I'm hoping to secure a guest who will come and talk to us, hopefully live while we are in the hotel at Chessington. And as of course, don't forget on Thursday, Battle of the Rides, the second coming, if you like, Twisted Tracks versus Theme Parks All Over, Thursday night, 8 p.m. I know it's a lot to remember. Look at the channel. The thumbnails are there. Click the notification buttons. Please join us. It's always lovely to have you. And I will appreciate everybody that watches in the live chat and while the live stream's going on, and also watches on catch up afterwards. Your support is very much appreciated, and very welcome. And I can't thank everybody enough for that. So on that note, I'm going to wrap everything up. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you on Thursday, hopefully. Take care for now. Bye.